It's the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Tune in. Tune in. Tune in. Tune in.
When you think about the next project or the next parcel of land to develop on, like how do you evaluate, all right, we want to build X here, or we want to build X there, or we want to like see what the possibilities are. What's that process like?
Oh man, it's different for every project,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you're doing your due diligence. I mean, that's really what you're doing, and whether it's for a residential project or a commercial project, you have a lot of things, a lot of stones to turn over, right? For a commercial project, I'm not going to be able to list all of them,
Mhm.
but I'll probably call out some differences that you wouldn't look at in residential. So one, you got to look at the soils. Are the soils dirty or not, right? Because if the soils are dirty, depending on the type of use that was there before, was there a dry cleaner there? Was there a gas station? Was there a manufacturing facility there? And not just, 10 years ago, 100 years ago, sometimes there'll be uses that have contaminated the soils.
Wow.
And that really impacts your ability to finance a project, right? So we certainly look at soils. And then also it increases your liability because you may be responsible for cleaning the dirt, and that takes a lot of time and a lot of money. We do a very thorough job on researching the title, right? All of the encumbrances, easements, or covenants. I've, we've gotten bit before by a hidden covenant somewhere deep, deep, deep down in 700 pages of title documents that restricted a potential use on the site, which meant that we could no longer build that use. And we were actually considering building the use on that site. And it was
Wow.
buried down in a ridiculous number of pages. So, that's something that we pay a ton of attention to. We spend a lot of time doing highest and best use evaluations. Like we are a mixed use developer, so we do residential, we do office, we do hospitality. So we'll have a full on design team, architect, engineer, you have it, traffic, geotech, structural, come in on the front end and actually do massing studies and infrastructure assessments to determine what's its highest and best use. How tall can we build? How many units can we build? How many square feet can we build? How many parking spaces? Um, and then what else did you ask for? What do we look at?
Yeah,
Mm,
I think that was a good summary.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's so much,
Yeah.
like you saw one of my checklist for due diligence on a commercial site. I mean, there's a lot to be done. For example, a due diligence on, a residential project may only a contingency period may be a week. You're gonna do an inspection, an appraisal, and get your financing in order. For us, that contingency period is gonna be 60 days, 90 days.
Wow.
You're gonna have a really long period because there's a lot to be done. I mean, you're really turning over a lot of stones.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild. So your checklist, how many pages do you think would you say on the top of your head it might be, depending on like the project?
Pages? Oh, well, the checklist itself might be like on a 11 by 17, right? But in
Got it.
like a spreadsheet, with maybe
Yeah.
100 different sales. But those sales represent, like if I'm working with an architect that's going to be, doing a massing study on a particular site, that might be a 2-month process with, 10 different meetings, while we're fine tuning the programming and moving things around. Or, for example, the environmental analysis on the soils, like that's significant dollars, significant money. So all of those little sales represent huge chunks of time and money. Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely. How does the company get the capital to deploy for these projects?
It's a really good question. It's different for different companies, right? Different approaches, and there are a lot of companies whose whole business model is based on how they finance the project and the margins in there, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, some people self-finance. I'm not a huge advocate of that because the projects are so big. Not many people have $1 billion to, self-finance a project. But if you have a $5 million, multifamily project that's 50 units. In our market, that would be more like 25 units to build, maybe even a little bit less, depending on where you are. But if you have the money, you could, self-finance. A lot of people like to pull in equity partners. You might find a family that wants to diversify their portfolio or has holdings in real estate, and they're willing to, fund you, or other equity partners that have money. You can go to traditional banks, and you're going to have some skin in the game, a lot more skin than you would in a residential project. There's hard money lenders in commercial real estate. They're
Wow.
going to charge you a significant amount of interest, but they do exist. And then there are also institutions. I mean, large institutions that have significant holdings that just want, a certain return on their investment or a certain cap rate, and they're also willing to come into the deal, usually as debt, not usually as an equity partner.
Got it. And what is the difference between like a debt and equity partner?
So like it's almost like don't think of a partner, right? Just think of equity, right? When you go and you put down however many dollars into a residential project, that represents your equity in the project, right? And then you go and you get a mortgage, which is debt, right? And all that mortgage lender wants is their interest rate return, right? They don't need a piece of your project. They don't care what you make or don't make on the back end. They don't care about any of that. They are a debt provider, right? So in this same case, you might go get, different types of groups, whether that's a family, whether that's an individual, other investor, it doesn't matter, but those folks will become essentially equity partners in that they'll put their own skin in the game, and then you're going to negotiate who gets what splits on the end. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Okay.
Makes sense.
And a lot of times the way the deals come together is you'll have, a group of equity partners. Maybe it's a single person, maybe it's more. And then you usually take that equity and then you go leverage it to go get debt.
Got
Is
it.
usually.
That makes sense. What are some of your favorite projects that you worked on?
Oh man. Well, of course I have to name the project I'm sitting in. I
Yeah.
mean, it's such a substantial project. We have some really cool elements here. For your followers, if you want to check it out, it's southport.life is the website. And it's just a really unique project. We're pioneering a whole brand new market for Class A office here. So hasn't existed Class A office in this particular sub-market. We have 600 linear feet of waterfront. So you can pull up your boat and park your boat on Lake Washington and, come in and eat and stay at the hotel. And I mean, it just has all of these really cool amenities. And then also it just has a ton of runway. So in the last, 15 months, we've acquired another 15 acres to expand. So that's going to represent another probably 1.5 to $2 billion worth of investment going forward. So I think just because of the scale and the fact that it's changing the complexion of the surrounding neighborhood, it's probably my favorite.
Definitely. That's awesome. And what's it like just, sitting in the project you're in now, or driving around and seeing things you worked on? What is that experience like? Like what goes through your mind just considering, how much you worked to get to this point?
Can I pop my collar on your podcast?
Yeah, you definitely can. You definitely can.
No. No, it's just rewarding. Like, there's just so many places that I drive down where I can see, like, that's me right there. That's my hand right there. I can see it. It's just rewarding. It's just the best way to put it. Especially when the spaces feel good and they bring people together and they enhance people's quality of life. Like, there's nothing like that for me personally. Now, there are some blocks that I won't drive now that I messed up in my early career. There's some blocks I will not drive down. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
But in general, I love seeing my hand in the environment.
Definitely. What are some lessons you would say you've learned during your career?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, that's essentially it. There are blocks that I won't drive down because I messed up something so bad. Probably my most the one that sticks out in my mind. It isn't the biggest project. It was early in my career, and it was a Starbucks. Okay, and they were actually, it was a change of use. They were changing a Arby's into a Starbucks, and they had a drive-through lane, and they're used to the drive-through lane being like Arby's. You know, you might have 5, 6 cars, not a drive-through lane for Starbucks where you have 10 cars, you know, in queue, or 15 cars in queue, and it is the worst drive-through for Starbucks in all of the Seattle area. And it's because I didn't pay attention to the stacking. So basically the lengths of cars in the drive-through lane. And I still go there and get coffee sometimes and shake my head. But I think the point that I learned was that just the details matter. Like, even no matter how big these projects are, if you're not combing down into the weeds, you can really get bitten. For example, if I hadn't read those 700 pages of documents, which sounds ridiculous, but it's necessary, and you have other people reading, you have people, you know, looking past your shoulder. But if I hadn't read through that and really dug deep to find that CC&R, I mean, we would have purchased a property that we wouldn't have been able to use as we intended, you know? So yeah, the details matter. That's the biggest lesson I've learned.
Hi everyone, Sam here from the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Make sure to hit that notification bell and that subscribe button, and to visit us at blackrealestatedialogue.com.